The palace of the emperor was filled with whispers. Servants moved quickly, their eyes wide, their steps hurried. Everyone feared one thing, not war, not enemies, not the emperor himself. They feared the baby dragons. The dragons were the emperor's treasure, his pride, his future guardians, small in size, but filled with fire. Their scales glittered like jewels, their eyes burned with wild light. They were not gentle like infants, they bit. They scratched, they roared, they breathed sparks that burned clothes, they clawed walls, they shattered glass. No caretaker lasted more than a day. The aliens who lived in the palace were proud and strong, but even the bravest guards trembled when they heard the dragons cry. Babysitters were brought from every corner of the empire. Healers, trainers, scholars, none could endure. Some left with burns, others with tears, all left with fear. Soon, rumors spread through the galaxy. The emperor's children cannot be tamed, one voice said. Even his baby dragons frighten armies. Another whispered. The emperor grew angry. His patience thin. He wanted someone, anyone, who could care for them. He declared, "Whoever can calm my dragons will have my trust, my gold, and my eternal favor." Many tried. All failed. The dragons grew worse, louder, more violent, until the palace halls were filled with constant roars and smoke. Some said even the emperor himself could not approach them without force. The empire laughed in secret, mocking their ruler, for what kind of emperor could not control his own children? Then, one day, a new name was spoken. Not a warrior, not a scholar, but a human, a nurse named Clara. She had come from the far colonies, where humans were still strangers in the wider galaxy. She was small compared to the towering alien guards, her hands soft, her eyes calm. When she volunteered, the court gasped. "A human?" They whispered. "They are reckless. They are foolish. She will die in minutes." But Claire only smiled gently. "I have worked with the young before, and young ones are not monsters. They are only misunderstood." The aliens laughed, shaking their heads. "She does not know what she is walking into," they said. But the emperor, curious and desperate, allowed it. "Let her try," he commanded. "And if she fails, she will not rise again." The day came. The gates of the dragon nursery opened. Smoke drifted out. Heat rolled across the floor. Inside, the walls were clawed and burned. The floor cracked. Two baby dragons snarled in the shadows, their teeth sharp, their eyes glowing. Every guard who had entered this room before had run out screaming. But Clara walked in slowly, her steps calm, her hands empty, her face without fear. The dragons saw her. Their roars shook the room. One spat sparks at her feet. Another snapped its jaw near her arm. The guards outside flinched, waiting for her to flee. But Clara only tilted her head, watching them with steady eyes. She crouched low, lowering herself to their level. Her voice soft but firm. She said, "So much noise. But I hear you." The dragons blinked, confused. They expected fear. They expected running. But this human did not run. She smiled. She reached into her pocket, not for a weapon, but for a small cloth. She sat on the burned floor, calm as a mountain. The guards stared in shock. "She sits with them." One whispered, "She is mad." The dragons circled her, growling, their tails lashing. But she did not move, her breathing steady, her eyes gentle. Every other caretaker had shouted, had fought, had begged. But Clara gave them silence, patience, presence. Minutes passed, long and heavy. The guards outside shifted nervously. Any moment now. They muttered, "She will scream. She will run." But no scream came. Instead, Clara leaned closer and whispered, "You are loud, but you are only children, and children need rhythm." Her hand tapped softly against her knee. Steady beats, like a heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. The dragons froze for a moment, their heads tilting. The sound was strange to them, yet familiar. It reminded them of something safe, something steady. They did not attack. They listened. The guards could not believe their eyes. The human sat calmly with the emperor's monsters. She was not burned, not bitten, not broken. Instead, the dragons lowered their roars, their tails slowed. For the first time in memory, the nursery grew quiet. Outside, whispers spread through the palace like fire. The human is still alive. She did not run. She calmed them. The emperor himself came to the gates, his golden robes trailing behind him. His eyes widened as he saw the impossible. The dragons, feared by all, circling gently around a human nurse. Clara looked up, her eyes shining with calm confidence. "They are not monsters," she said softly. "They only need to be understood." The emperor's jaw tightened, his mind racing. For the first time, hope flickered in his heart. Could this strange human truly succeed where all others had failed? And the baby dragons, once wild and untouchable, watched Clara with curious eyes. For the first time, they did not see an enemy. They saw something different, something new, and the galaxy would soon learn that humans always find a way. Asterisk. The human Erevault palace was buzzing with whispers. Servants ran through the halls. Guards tightened their grips on weapons. Nobles gathered in secret corners. All spoke of the same thing. The human nurse who walked into the nursery and did not flee. Some laughed, saying she was reckless and would not last a night. Others grew uneasy, for they had seen the dragons fall silent for the first time in memory. Clara rose from the burned floor of the nursery, her hands steady, her breathing calm. The dragons watched her with glowing eyes, their tails flicking with restless energy. She met their gaze, not with fear, but with patience. Her heart raced, but her face did not show it. She knew children. She had worked with many. These were bigger and fiercer, but still children. Outside the gates, the emperor's court murmured. She tricked them for a moment, nothing more. One alien lord said, "They will tear her apart when she returns tomorrow." Another added, but Claire only bowed to the emperor, her voice soft. "With your permission, I will begin their care tomorrow at dawn." The emperor's golden eyes studied her. "You are strange, human," he said. "Others begged for mercy, yet you ask for more time." Clara smiled faintly. "They are not beasts, your majesty. They are young, and the young test the world before they trust it." The emperor's lips curved in a rare smile, half amusement, half disbelief. "Very well, human. You have until the moon's rise tomorrow. Fail, and even I will not protect you." The next morning, Clara returned to the nursery. She brought no weapons, no armor, no guards, only a small bag and her calm steps. The dragons greeted her with roars, their sparks flying, their claws scraping stone. The guards outside tightened their grips, expecting her to scream and run. But Claire only sat on the scorched floor again. Her hands tapped a steady rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. The same sound she had given them before. The dragons tilted their heads, curious, but still restless. Clara reached into her bag and pulled out a simple cloth ball. She rolled it across the floor slowly. One dragon snapped at it, fire flashing from his mouth. The ball burned to ash, smoke curling into the air. The guards laughed. "See, she is a fool. Ties mean nothing to fireborn beasts." But Claire only nodded, making notes in her small book. "Not toys," she murmured. "Not yet." The dragons prowled around her, testing her, roaring in her face, their breath hot enough to sting. But Claire did not move, her heartbeat steady, her tapping soft. "Nice is your language," she whispered, "but silence will be mine." The day passed, long and heavy. The dragons did not come fully, but they did not attack. They circled her like storms circling an island, and she remained firm. The guards outside shifted in confusion. "She lasts another day," one said. "How?" By evening, Clara stood before the emperor again. His throne gleamed with jewels, his crown heavy with firelight. He leaned forward, his deep voice filling the hall. "Human, others have failed in hours. You last for days. Explain." Clara bowed her head, her voice calm but certain. "I listen, your majesty." They roar, they bite, they burn. But those are not attacks, they are cries, cries that no one ever answered with patience. The court erupted in whispers. She calls fire cries. She says the beasts are only children. But the emperor raised his hand, silencing them. His golden eyes studied her like a puzzle. Then what will you do tomorrow? When cries turned to fury. Clara smiled faintly, her hands folded in front of her. Then I will listen harder and find the trick no one else could see. That night, in the dark nursery, the dragons coiled in restless sleep, sparks still rising from their breath. But in the silence, their tails tapped faintly against the floor. A rhythm, a beat, soft but steady, the same rhythm Clara had given them. The guards watching shivered. They are copying her, one whispered, as if she has placed something inside them. The legend of the human nurse spread beyond the palace walls. Merchants spoke of her in markets. Travelers carried the tale to distant systems. A human dares the emperor's dragons, they said. And lives. The galaxy laughed at first, then listened, because laughter cannot kill a story. And stories, once seated, grow. First attempts next morning. The palace was alive with expectation. Word had spread quickly. The human nurse had lasted 2 days where others fled in hours. Servants whispered. Guards exchanged bets. And nobles waited for her failure. They all said the same thing. Today she will break. Clara walked calmly through the golden halls, her simple clothes in sharp contrast to the shining palace. She carried her small bag again, filled with nothing that looked like weapons or armor. The guard sneered as she passed. She believes she can tame fire with toys, one muttered. She will not last until evening, another replied. The emperor himself watched from his throne room balcony as Clara entered the nursery. Smoke drifted from the cracks in the heavy doors. He rolled across the floor. Inside, the baby dragons waited, restless, their eyes glowing like molten gold. When the doors opened, they roared, sparks flying across the room, their claws tearing the stone. Clara did not flinch. She set her bag down gently and sat on the scorched floor. The dragons circled her, snapping their jaws, testing her. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Good morning, little ones." The guards outside exchanged nervous looks. She greets them as if they are pets, one scoffed. She is doomed. Clara reached into her bag and pulled out food. Not raw meat like the trainers had used before, but something different. Cooked pieces, soft and warm, prepared with care. She placed them on the ground, sliding them toward the dragons. One dragon sniffed, snorted, and then burned it to ash. With a sharp breath, the other turned away, growling. The guards laughed loudly. See, even food fails her. They want no kindness, only chaos. But Clara only wrote in her small book, "Food rejected, far answers," she murmured, calm as ever. She placed the book aside and reached again into her bag. This time, she pulled out a simple tie, a ball of bright cloth. She rolled it across the floor, watching carefully. The dragon's lunch, one snapping it in half, the other setting it aflame. Ash drifted across the floor once more. The guards howl in laughter. She thinks children's games can tame fireborn beasts. She wastes her time. But Clara did not look at them. Her eyes stayed on the dragons. Her lips curved into a small smile. Not toys either. She whispered, "Then maybe." Sound. From her bag she pulled a small device, a music box, old and simple. She wound the key slowly, and a gentle melody filled the room. Soft notes echoed against the scorched walls. The dragons froze for a moment, their heads tilting. The guards leaned closer, shocked. "Look." They listen, one whispered. But the pause was short. The dragons roared suddenly, flames bursting. The music box was swallowed in fire, its notes silenced. Clara covered it quickly to protect what was left. Her hands burned, but her eyes calm. She whispered, "Not music either, not yet." The guards laughed again, their voices mocking. She feels like the rest. She will not last another day. But still Clara did not give up. She stood slowly, dusting ash from her clothes. Her calm eyes met the glowing eyes of the dragons. "You test me," she said softly, "and I will not run." Hours passed, each attempt failing. Food burned, toys destroyed, song silenced. Yet Clara remained, patient as stone. Every failure she wrote in her book, every roar she answered with steady breath. The dragons grew frustrated, confused. Every other caretaker had fled, had screamed, had begged. But this human stayed, watching, learning, refusing to break. By evening, the emperor summoned her again. She bowed before his golden throne, her face calm though her hands still bore red burns. The nobles sneered, waiting for him to punish her, but the emperor's voice was low and curious. You fail again and again, yet you do not flee. Why? Clara met his gaze, her voice soft but unshaken. Because failure is not the end. Failure is a step. Each time they refuse me, I learn more about what they are. The emperor studied her for a long moment, his golden eyes narrowing. At last, he nodded slowly, strange words. Human, but you may try again, tomorrow. The court erupted in whispers of disbelief. She has failed and yet is allowed to return. The emperor favors her. But Claire only bowed once more, her voice steady. Thank you, your majesty. I will not waste the chance. That night, the dragons lay cold in their scorched den, their tails tapping faintly against the ground. Clara's rhythm echoed in their restless sleep. They had destroyed her gifts, her music, her toys. But still, she remained, and for the first time in their short lives, they began to wonder what she would try next. The human-tricked sun rose over the emperor's palace, its golden light spilling across towers and banners. Servants rushed through the halls, whispering about the strange human nurse. Some said she was stubborn, others called her mad, but no one could deny the truth. She had survived longer than any before her. Inside the nursery, smoke hung heavy in the air. The walls were blackened, the floor cracked from dragon claws. Two baby dragons prowled restlessly, their eyes glowing like molten fire. They roared as Clara entered again, their voices shaking the stone. The guards muttered, she will fail today. She has nothing left to try. But Clara's calm steps did not falter. She set her small bag aside and sat cross-legged on the scorched floor. Her hands rested on her knees, her breathing steady. She looked at the dragons with soft eyes and whispered, you are strong, you are loud, but you are still children, and I have one more thing to try. The dragons circled her, tails lashing, their roars filling the room. Clara closed her eyes, her hands tapping lightly against her legs. Thump, 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 a steady rhythm like the beating of a heart. The dragons paused, their heads tilting. The sound was not fire, not fear, not command. It was simple, steady, endless. She hummed softly, a low sound that rose and fell like waves. It was not a song with words, only a rhythm made of breath. The dragons stepped closer, confused but curious. Their ears twitched, their tails slowed. The roars faded into growls, then into silence. The guards outside leaned forward, eyes wide. What is she doing? One whispered. She hums like she sings to them. Another muttered. But none had ever seen the dragons so still, so quiet. Clara opened her eyes slowly. Her hands still tapped the same heartbeat rhythm. She whispered, you know this, don't you? The sound of life, the sound of safety. The dragons blinked, lowering their heads slightly. One rumbled, a soft sound unlike its usual roar. Clara smiled faintly, her voice gentle. Yes, little ones, you hear me? This is not power, not chains, only rhythm. And rhythm is trust. Ours passed. She kept the rhythm steady, never breaking. The dragons lay near her, their bodies quilled, but their eyes calm. For the first time, they closed their jaws without smoke. For the first time, the nursery was peaceful. The guards outside were stunned. They rest. One whispered, they actually rest. They never sleep when watched. But now they lie beside her. The emperor himself came to the gates, curiosity burning in his golden eyes. When he saw the sight, he froze. The dragons, curled near the human, listening to her soft hum. He had seen them bite steel, burn wood, shatter stone. But he had never seen them quiet. Not once, until now. Clara looked up, her calm eyes meeting his. They do not fear power, your majesty. They fear chaos. They do not need force. They need rhythm, a steady heart to guide them. The emperor's gaze hardened with thought. Others brought whips, chains, and fire, But you bring only silence and patience. Clara nodded, her voice soft. Because humans know children do not grow through fear, they grow through trust. The court erupted in disbelief when they heard the news. The dragons obey her. She hums to them like infants. Impossible. But the guards swore it was true, and no one dared argue against what the emperor himself had seen. That night, Clara remained in the nursery. The dragons coiled close, their scales warm against the cold floor. They no longer roared at her. They no longer tried to burn her. Instead, they tapped their tails softly, keeping time with her rhythm. A strange bond had begun, one no one could deny. And so the whispers spread. The human has found the trick, they said, a trick no one else could see. The galaxy would soon learn what the palace already knew, that humans do not always win with strength. Sometimes they win with patience, with heart, with something so simple it seems like magic. The baby dragons have been feared by all. But now, when they called beside a calm human nurse, the legend of humans grew once more. For where others saw monsters, humans saw children. And that made all the difference. Asterisk, the breakthrough palace was alive with new whispers for the first time in memory. The nursery was quiet. No roaring, no sparks, no screams, only silence broken by a soft human hum. Servants carried the tale to the kitchens. The guards carried it to the barracks. And nobles carried it to the throne room. The human found a trick, they said. The dragons listened to her. The emperor listened in silence as the reports came. His golden eyes narrowed, his clawed hands tapping the arm of his throne. He had given the human permission as a curiosity, expecting her to fail. Yet now, the impossible had happened. The baby dragons, feared even by him, curled calmly beside her. Clara returned to the throne the next morning, her clothes scorched, but her face calm. She bowed deeply, her voice steady. Your Majesty, they respond to rhythm. They listen to patience. They do not want control. They want steadiness. The court erupted in laughter. She tames them with songs. One lord sneered. She insults the emperor with childish games. Another hissed. But the emperor raised his hand, silencing them. Show me, he commanded. The court followed into the nursery, their robes trailing, their eyes sharp with doubt. The guards lined the walls, their hands tight on weapons. The dragons stirred as the doors opened, sparks flying from their mouths. But when Clara entered and tapped her rhythm, humming low, the beasts froze, their roars faded. Their tails tapped softly against the floor. The court fell silent, their disbelief turning into awe. One dragon lowered its head beside Clara's lap, curling close like a resting pet. The other stretched its wings, but folded them gently. Clara smiled softly, running a hand carefully along their scales. They are not monsters, she whispered. They are only loud children who need calm. The nobles whispered among themselves in shock. No chains, no fire. And yet they listen. The human bends them without force. The emperor's gaze was unreadable, but his voice rumbled deep. You have done what no warrior, no trainer, no scholar could do. Human, you have my attention. Clara bowed, her heart racing. Thank you, Your Majesty. But this is only the beginning. The emperor's eyes narrowed, curious. The beginning, yes, Clara said. Trust is not built in a day, but with each day. They will grow to follow without fear. The emperor leaned back on his throne, his golden robes gleaming in the firelight. You speak boldly, human, but words are wind. I will see what truth lies in your patience. He ordered her to continue the training daily, and he placed guards to watch her every move, to report every failure. The days passed, one after another. Clara returned each morning, sitting on the scorched floor, humming softly, tapping her rhythm. The dragons grew calmer, less wild. They began to nudge her gently with their snouts. They began to curl around her when they rested. Sometimes they tested her with fire or claws, but she never raised her voice, never struck them. She simply kept the rhythm, and they always returned to silence. The guards were astonished. She holds them without chains, one whispered. She calms fire with only a heartbeat. Another said, Even the emperor himself visited in secret. Standing in the shadows as he watched, he saw his dragons bow their heads before a simple human nurse, and though his pride stung, his heart stirred with respect. One evening, Clara was called before the throne again. The emperor's voice was sharp, his golden eyes glowing. You have succeeded for weeks, human. But one question remains. Will they obey when chaos surrounds them, or will they burn my palace again? Clara's voice was calm. Then test them, your majesty, for trust means nothing until it faces fire. The emperor's lips curved into the faintest smile. Very well, human. The festival of moons approaches. Fireworks will light the sky. The dragons always rage in terror when the skies burn. If you can hold them then, I will believe you. The court gasped. No one can hold them through fire. One lord cried, she will burn alive. Another said, but Clara only bowed her head, her voice steady. Then I will bring calm into fire. The festival neared, and the palace grew restless. Some prayed for her survival, others for her failure. But all knew one truth. If the human nurse could calm the dragons through chaos, the galaxy itself would change, because then, even fire would bow to her rhythm. The struggling night of the Festival of Moons arrived. The palace towers glowed with banners, lanterns, and firelight. Crowds filled the streets. Music filled the air. But inside the nursery, tension pressed like a heavy weight. The guards lined the walls with weapons ready. The nobles gathered on balconies above, eager to see the human fail. Even the emperor himself sat on a high throne brought into the chamber, his golden eyes unblinking as he waited. At the center of the scorched floor stood Clara, calm but alert, her small hands resting on her knees, her eyes steady. Beside her, the two baby dragons paced restlessly, their scales glittering in the torchlight. Then the first fireworks exploded across the sky outside. The chamber lit in flashes of green and red. The dragons froze, their eyes wide, their tails lashing. Then they roared, a sound so powerful the walls shook. Sparks burst from their mouths, claws scraped the stone. The guards flinched, gripping their weapons. Now she dies, one whispered. Clara did not move. Her voice rose above the chaos, steady and calm. Breathe with me, little ones, hear me, not the fire outside. Her hands tapped the rhythm again. Thump, thump, thump. But the dragons raged, their wings spread wide, their roars shaking the ceiling. The nobles shouted from above, she fails, the beasts will burn us all. Strike them down before they escape. But the emperor raised his hand, his eyes locked on Clara. Let her try, he commanded. The fireworks grew louder, bursting in showers of light. The dragons clawed the ground, their fire spilling across the floor. The heat seared Clara's skin. The smoke stung her eyes, yet she remained still, her voice never breaking. You are safe, she whispered, her hum rising stronger. Her tapping echoed steady against the stone. Thump, thump, thump. One dragon lunged toward the wall, its mouth glowing with fire. The guards raised their weapons, but Clara stepped forward quickly. She placed her hand gently against its snout. Her skin burned, but she did not flinch. She hummed louder, steady and strong. The dragon froze, its eyes flickering between fury and calm. Then slowly, it lowered, its head pressing against her hand. The chamber gasped in disbelief. She stopped it. A noble whispered, with only a song. Another said. The second dragon still roared, its wings beating furiously. Clara turned to it, her breath heavy but her voice steady. Not chaos, not fire, listen to me. Listen to the rhythm. She tapped the floor harder. Thump, thump, thump. The sound cut through the explosions outside. Her hum filled the chamber like a river, calm and endless. The dragon's wings slowed. Its fire dimmed. It growled once, then lowered itself beside her, curling near her feet. The first dragon followed, pressing its head into her lap. Both beasts, feared by the galaxy, now lay silent at the touch of a human nurse. The nursery that had once been filled with terror was now filled with quiet. The court was stunned. No one spoke. No one breathed. Even the emperor's unshakable face softened. his golden eyes wide with awe. The guards lowered their weapons, their jaws slack. The nobles whispered in disbelief. She calmed them in fire. She held them in chaos. No chains, no whips, only rhythm. Clara's hands trembled from the burns. Sweat dripped from her brow. But her eyes shone with calm pride. She whispered softly, more to herself than to anyone. Children do not need fear. They need someone who refuses to abandon them. The emperor rose slowly from his throne. The chamber fell silent as his voice rumbled deep. Human, you have done the impossible. You have tamed fire with patience. Where all my empire failed, you succeeded. Clara bowed, her voice steady though her body ached. I did not tame them, your majesty. I listened, and in listening, they chose peace. The words carried weight, heavy and unshakable. The nobles bowed their heads, ashamed of their laughter. The guards lowered their eyes, humbled by her courage. And the emperor, for the first time, bowed his head slightly to a human. Outside, fireworks still lit the sky. The festival roared on. But inside the nursery, silence ruled. The silence of trust, the silence of victory, and the sound of two baby dragons purring softly beside a human nurse. The victorized nursery was quiet. The air was heavy with the scent of smoke, but the sound was gone. No roars, no claws, no sparks, only silence broken by two soft rumbles. The baby dragons, once feared by all, lay cold beside Clara, praying like great cats. The nobles stared in disbelief from the balconies. The guards lowered their weapons, their eyes wide with awe. Never in the history of the empire had anyone seen such a sight. The beasts that had terrified the palace now rested peacefully in the arms of a human nurse. Clara sat on the scorched floor, her hands burned, her clothes torn, but her voice was calm. Her eyes bright with quiet pride. She whispered to the dragons, "Good, little ones, good. You are safe, you are strong. But you can be calm too." They called tighter against her, tails tapping faintly in the same rhythm she had taught them. The emperor rose slowly from his throne. His golden robes glowed in the firelight, his crown heavy with jewels. The chamber fell silent. All eyes on him, he stepped forward, his voice deep and heavy with authority. Human, you have done what no warrior, no trainer, no scholar could do. You have brought peace to fire. Clara bowed low, though her body trembled with exhaustion. Thank you, your majesty. But I did not force them. I only listened, and they chose me. The emperor's eyes narrowed, but not in anger, in thought, in respect. You claim this is no trick of power, but a trick of patience. Clara nodded, her voice soft but unshaken. Yes, your majesty. Humans never stop trying. Even when others give up, we search for another way. The court erupted in whispers. She says humans do not stop. She says patience is their weapon. The guards looked at one another, uneasy but impressed. The nobles frowned, yet even they could not deny the truth before their eyes. The emperor raised his hand, silencing all. He looked at Claire with a rare smile. You are strange, human, but today you are also honored. From this day forward, the care of my dragons belongs to your people. Guests filled the chamber. Humans, caretakers of the emperor's dragons. No one else may touch them now. Clara bowed deeply, her heart full. Then I will guard them as if they were my own. The emperor's voice rumbled like distant thunder. And your kind will be remembered, for patience is its own kind of power. That night, as the festival ended, the story spread across the empire. Messengers carried it to distant worlds. Traders carried it to other stars. The human nurse calmed the emperor's dragons. They said, she tamed fire with rhythm. She bent chaos with patience. The galaxy listened, first with laughter, then with awe, because laughter fades, but awe remains. In the nursery, Clara rested against the stone wall, the baby dragons cold beside her, their warm scales glowing faintly. They no longer roared when fireworks burst outside. Instead, they tapped their tails in rhythm, steady and calm, a rhythm that would echo through the palace forever. And so the legend of humans grew once more, not for their strength, not for their weapons, but for something stranger, for their ability to see monsters and find children, for their refusal to surrender, for their endless patience. The emperor himself whispered to his closest advisors, "Humans are dangerous not because they fight, but because they do not give up." Clara closed her eyes, exhausted but smiling. She had not only won the trust of dragons, she had changed the empire. And in the silence of the nursery, with two mighty creatures breathing softly beside her, the galaxy learned again what it meant to face humanity. Not fire, not steel, but will, the will to endure, the will to try, the will to find a way. That was the human legacy, and now it belonged to the stars.